Every day, your mind runs faster than your life, dragging you into fears, imaginations, and problems that don't even exist yet. Before we begin, I want you to take a moment and ask yourself one question. How many hours of your life have you lost worrying about things that never even happened? How many nights did you stay awake, replaying the same fears, only to wake up and realize you suffered twice, first in your mind, then in reality? Buddhism teaches a simple but life-changing truth. The mind creates more trouble than life ever does. If you can master your mind, even slightly, you unlock a peace most people spend their whole lives searching for. Today, you will learn 7 Buddhist lessons that will show you how to stop worrying, break the cycle of mental suffering, and wake up every day with a lighter heart, a clearer mind, and a peaceful soul. 1. The mind creates worry, not the world. Worry does not originate from the events happening in your life. It originates from the way your mind interprets those events. This is why 2 people can experience the exact same situation: losing a job, waiting for exam results, facing uncertainty, or dealing with a challenge, yet one person remains calm and steady, while the other becomes anxious, overwhelmed, and unable to think clearly. The world is the same for both, but the inner dialogue is completely different. Buddhism teaches that the human mind works like a storyteller, and most of the time this storyteller exaggerates, imagines worst-case scenarios, and creates fear-filled stories that may never come true. It predicts disasters before anything happens. It paints frightening pictures that feel real, even though they are only thoughts. And because you live inside your mind, these imagined fears start to feel like reality. When you automatically believe these thoughts, you begin to suffer. You feel pressure, tension, fear, and confusion, not because something terrible has happened, but because your mind convinced you that something terrible might happen. The mind is powerful enough to make you feel pain, even in moments where nothing is actually wrong. But the moment you understand that thoughts are just mental events passing through your awareness, not solid facts, not predictions written in stone, something inside you softens. You stop letting every thought control your emotion. You stop reacting instantly. You stop assuming your fears are true just because they showed up in your head. Buddhism teaches that most of our suffering comes from believing the stories our mind creates. When you learn to step back and observe these thoughts, instead of absorbing them, they lose their intensity. Instead of drowning in fear, you begin to see that many of your worries are simply shadows, illusions created by an overactive mind trying to protect you, but ending up scaring you instead. And the moment you pause and say to yourself, "This is just a thought, not reality," you take away the thought's power to control your emotions. Your inner storm begins to calm down. Your breathing becomes slower. Your body relaxes. The pressure in your chest softens. And slowly, worry loses the grip it once had on your life. 2. Focus only on what you can control and release the rest. One of the biggest reasons people worry endlessly is because they try to control things that were never meant to be controlled in the first place. You worry about what people think of you, but people's opinions are outside your hands. You worry about the future, but the future hasn't even arrived yet. You worry about outcomes, results, timing, other people's actions, and situations that are simply too big for one person to manage. Buddhism teaches that this constant grasping, this attempt to control everything around you, is the root of mental suffering. The more you try to grab the world tightly, the more it slips through your fingers, and the more anxiety you feel. Life becomes much easier when you understand the difference between what belongs to you and what doesn't. Your choices, your effort, your reactions, your discipline, your mindset, these are yours. But the weather, other people's decisions, how fast life moves, who stays, who leaves, what opportunities appear, what challenges arise, these are not yours to control. When you waste your energy trying to fix things that are not yours, your mind becomes exhausted because it is fighting a battle it can never win. This is why worry grows. It grows in the gap between what you want to control and what you actually can. Buddhism teaches that inner peace begins when you stop chasing control and instead start cultivating acceptance. When you bring your attention back to your area of responsibility, your behavior, your effort, your attitude, suddenly life becomes lighter. You stop trying to change people and instead focus on becoming the best version of yourself. You stop worrying about how everything will unfold and instead put your full presence into the actions you're taking today. You stop trying to force outcomes and instead trust that your effort, combined with time and patience, will lead you where you need to be. The moment you shift from "I must control everything" to "I will handle what is mine and release the rest," a huge weight falls off your shoulders. You begin to feel a freedom that people rarely experience. Your mind becomes calmer because it is no longer overstretched, trying to fix the entire universe. Instead, it stays grounded in what is real and manageable. You learn to say, "I will give my best, and whatever is beyond that is not my burden to carry." This simple shift can reduce more worry than anything else because it removes the pressure you unknowingly put on yourself every day. When you operate from this place of clarity, you stop playing tug-of-war with life. You no longer resist what you cannot change. You no longer drown in thoughts about outcomes. You no longer chase things outside your reach. Instead, you stand firmly in your own power. And this is where real peace begins, when you take full responsibility for what is truly yours and surrender everything that was never meant to be under your control. This is how you stop worrying, step by step, and slowly reclaim your inner peace. 3. The present moment is the only safe place. Worry is a time traveler. It either pulls you backward into memories you cannot change, or throws you forward into a future that has not arrived. The present moment, the one place where life is actually happening, is usually ignored. Buddhism teaches that the present is the only space where peace exists, the only space where your breath is real, your senses are awake, and your mind has something solid to rest on. Yet worry trains your mind to wander into dangerous territory, imagining worst-case scenarios, replaying old mistakes, and creating endless what-if situations that drain your energy. This wandering mind becomes the source of your stress, because the past is often filled with regret, and the future is filled with fear. But the present moment is quiet, simple, gentle, and safe. When you are fully present, your mind cannot create stories about fear because it is too engaged with reality. You are not trapped by thoughts of "what if things go wrong?" You are simply noticing your breath, feeling your environment, listening to sounds around you, or focusing on the task in front of you. It's like stepping out of a storm into a peaceful room where nothing is chasing you and nothing is threatening you. The mind only becomes dangerous when it wanders, but when it stays in the now, it becomes calm, steady, and supportive. Buddhism teaches that suffering often begins when the mind leaves the present moment. The past is a closed chapter, the stories are already written, the pain is already done, and nothing you do today can rewrite what has already been lived. And the future is a blank page. It hasn't shaped itself yet. It hasn't revealed its lessons, and worrying about it does not give you control. The only moment you actually have power in is this one, this breath, this step, this choice. When you truly understand this, something inside you begins to relax, because you realize that you don't need to carry the weight of every timeline at once. Returning to the present moment is like gently pulling your mind back from the edge of a cliff. You may feel it drifting into fear, and instead of letting it run wild, you say, "Come back." You notice your breath going in and out, the movement of your chest, the feeling of your feet on the ground. Small anchors bring you back to reality, and slowly, you start to understand that worry cannot touch you as long as you stay here, in the now, where life is happening. You discover that the present moment has a softness that calms your nervous system and a clarity that quiets the noise in your mind. The more you practice living in the present, the less power your thoughts have over you. You start noticing how peaceful it feels when you let go of the past and surrender the future. You stop fighting imaginary fears and instead become fully alive in this moment. Worry loses its foundation because it cannot survive in the now. It needs a past to regret or a future to fear. Without those, it collapses. This is why meditation, mindful breathing, and grounding practices are so powerful. They train your mind to live where peace lives. When you master this, you don't just reduce worry, you transform your entire relationship with life. 4. Let go of the illusion that you must have all the answers. One of the heaviest burdens people carry is the belief that they must know everything ahead of time. You feel pressured to figure out your future, your purpose, your relationships, your career, your direction, and every possible outcome before you even take the next step. This pressure creates constant mental noise because the mind tries to solve problems that don't even exist yet. Buddhism teaches that this craving for certainty, this deep need to have all the answers, is one of the roots of worry. The more you demand clarity before moving forward, the more you paralyze yourself with fear. Life has never promised absolute certainty, and it never will. It reveals itself moment by moment, not all at once. People worry when they stand too far into the future, trying to predict things that are outside human control. You want a guarantee that things will work out. You want a sign that your decision is right. You want a perfect plan with no mistakes. But this desire for total certainty creates a pressure that suffocates your peace. Instead of living, you begin calculating, analyzing, overthinking, and imagining worst-case outcomes because your mind is terrified of the unknown. The truth is, the unknown is not your enemy. It is simply part of life's natural flow. Every path, every opportunity, every change, every new chapter unfolds only when the time is right. Buddhism teaches that wisdom does not come from having all the answers. It comes from being open to the journey. When you accept that you do not need to understand everything at once, you release an enormous amount of tension from your body and mind. You begin to trust that clarity will come when it is meant to. You realize that not every question needs an immediate solution. Some things become clear only after you live through them. Some decisions only make sense after you take the first step. Some blessings only appear after you let go of forcing the future. When you stop demanding certainty, fear starts to fade. Anxiety loosens. Your mind stops racing because it is no longer trying to control what cannot be controlled. Instead, you shift from fear to curiosity. You begin asking, "What can I learn from this moment?" instead of, "What if everything goes wrong?" This shift transforms your emotional world. Curiosity opens the heart. Fear closes it. Curiosity makes life lighter. Fear makes life heavier. When you live with curiosity instead of worry, the unknown becomes less like a threat and more like a door to new possibilities. Life never gives you the full map, it gives you one step at a time. When you accept this truth, you stop trying to outrun uncertainty. You stop torturing yourself with questions that have no answers yet. You stop demanding perfection from yourself. You begin moving forward with a softer, more peaceful energy. You trust that you will learn, grow, and adapt as life unfolds. You understand that every answer you need will come at the exact moment you are ready to receive it. And when this understanding becomes part of your mindset, you experience a freedom that most people never feel. The freedom that comes from embracing the journey without needing to control every inch of it. 5. Stop feeding the mind with fearful thoughts. Worry is not something that appears out of nowhere. It is something that grows slowly inside you, fed by the thoughts you repeat again and again. The mind works like a garden. Whatever you water will grow. If you keep watering fear, doubt, worst-case scenarios, and negative memories, those thoughts become stronger and louder over time. The more attention you give them, the more real they begin to feel, even when they have no connection to your actual reality. Buddhism teaches that suffering increases when you continuously feed your mind with thoughts that weaken your peace. Fear thrives on attention. Silence makes it disappear. Most people don't realize how often they unconsciously feed their fears. You think about what could go wrong. You replay old mistakes. You imagine being judged. You create stories about the future, and you repeat them so many times that they start to feel like truth. But these thoughts are not facts, they are habits. Mental habits that formed long ago, often without your awareness. Worry becomes automatic, not because life is dangerous, but because your mind has rehearsed danger for so long that it believes it's protecting you. In reality, it is only exhausting you. Buddhism teaches that the mind gains power from what you focus on. If you give your attention to stressful thoughts, anxiety grows. If you give your attention to peaceful thoughts, calmness grows. The mind is neutral, it simply mirrors what you repeatedly feed it. When you understand this, you begin to see why your worries feel so heavy. You've been unknowingly feeding them for days, months, or even years. And like any well-fed creature, they have grown strong. But the beautiful truth is this: you can weaken any fear simply by starving it of attention. You don't have to fight your thoughts. You don't have to suppress them. You don't have to argue with them. You simply stop giving them the power they once had. When a fearful thought appears, instead of letting it control your emotions, you gently redirect your focus. You shift your attention to something grounding: your breath, your body, the task in front of you, or a peaceful thought that feels lighter. Every time you do this, you take a little bit of power away from fear. The mind works like a fire. If you constantly throw wood into it, the flames rise. But if you stop feeding it, the fire naturally begins to shrink. It burns weaker and weaker, until eventually it dies out. Fear works the same way. It cannot survive without your participation. The more you withdraw your attention from your worries, the faster they dissolve. And you begin to realize that you never had to win a battle against fear. You only had to stop fueling it. As you practice this, you notice a deep shift inside yourself. The thoughts that once overwhelmed you now pass through the mind without disturbing your peace. You begin to feel in control of your inner world because you understand that you are the one who decides what grows and what fades. This realization creates an inner strength that cannot be shaken easily. Once you learn not to feed fear, the mind becomes a peaceful, quiet space instead of a battlefield. This is how you break the habit of worry, by training your mind to stop giving energy to thoughts that do not serve your peace. The moment you stop feeding fear, you create room for clarity, confidence, and calmness to grow. And from that moment on, your life begins to feel lighter, more manageable, and deeply peaceful because you're no longer living inside the stories your mind once scared you with. 6. Choose acceptance over resistance. Worry is not only born from fear, it is born from resistance. Every time you resist reality as it is, your mind begins to fight with life. You resist the situation you are in. You resist people's behavior. You resist unexpected changes. You resist the timing of things. And most of all, you resist the truth that not everything will go exactly the way you plan. This resistance creates internal friction, and that friction becomes emotional suffering. Buddhism teaches that pain in life is often unavoidable, but suffering, the mental torture we create around the pain, comes from resistance. When you stop fighting what is already happening, a deep sense of peace begins to appear. Most people believe that acceptance means weakness or giving up, but it is actually the opposite. Acceptance is not about letting life walk all over you. Acceptance is seeing things clearly, understanding the present moment honestly, and not wasting unnecessary energy trying to change something that is already occurring. When a storm hits, resisting it will not stop the rain. You only tire yourself out. but accepting it allows you to protect yourself, stay grounded, and wait for it to pass. Life works in the same way. Things will happen outside your control, and no amount of worry will stop them. But acceptance helps you navigate them with wisdom and calmness. Resistance creates tension in your body and turbulence in your mind. You feel tightness in your chest, restlessness in your thoughts, and heaviness in your heart, because you're constantly pushing against reality. You say to yourself, why is this happening? This shouldn't be happening. Things were supposed to go differently. But life does not follow the stories in your mind. Life follows its own rhythm, its own timing, and its own design. When you resist this truth, you suffer. When you accept it, you breathe again. Acceptance doesn't mean you like everything. It simply means you stop making the situation worse with mental struggle. For example, losing a job hurts. That is pain. But worrying endlessly, replaying the loss, imagining the worst future, blaming yourself, and panicking about what comes next, that is suffering created by resistance. Acceptance allows you to say, this happened. I don't like it, but I will face it with clarity instead of panic. From this place, solutions arise, strength returns, creativity opens, calm replaces chaos. Your mind starts working for you instead of against you. Buddhism teaches that whatever you resist grows stronger. If you resist sadness, it becomes heavier. If you resist fear, it becomes louder. If you resist fear, it becomes louder. If you resist uncertainty, it becomes overwhelming. But when you accept your emotions, when you allow yourself to feel them without judgment, they begin to soften. They pass through you instead of getting stuck inside you. Acceptance is the most compassionate thing you can give yourself, because it gives your mind permission to stop fighting and start healing. Life becomes lighter the moment you stop expecting it to be perfect. You no longer argue with what is out of your hands. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to bend reality into what you wish it were. Instead, you meet life as it is, with wisdom, patience, and openness. When you choose acceptance, you move out of mental war and into inner peace. You begin to realize that you don't always need life to be easy. You only need your mind to stop resisting what's hard. This shift in mindset changes everything. You respond instead of react. You adapt instead of panic. You breathe instead of break. Acceptance brings clarity, and clarity brings peace. And when peace fills your mind, worry has no space left to survive. Acceptance doesn't solve every problem, but it puts you in the strongest possible state to handle whatever life gives you, calmly, wisely, and courageously. 7. Practice gratitude to shift the entire vibration of your mind. Worry often feels like a storm inside the mind, loud, chaotic, unpredictable, and exhausting. It fills your thoughts with fear, your heart with heaviness, and your body with tension. But what most people never realize is that the opposite of worry is not control, not certainty, and not even courage. The opposite of worry is gratitude. Gratitude is the practice that brings your mind back to abundance, back to reality, back to what is already good, already working, already present in your life. And Buddhism teaches that gratitude is not just a feeling. It is a powerful mental discipline that slowly rewires your entire emotional system. When gratitude becomes your mental foundation, worrying becomes harder and harder to maintain because your mind is simply not tuned to fear anymore. It is tuned to noticing what is right instead of what could go wrong. Most people spend their lives focusing on what is missing. They think about what they don't have, what they haven't achieved, what might fall apart, and what has not yet arrived. This mindset creates an inner environment where worry multiplies easily. The mind becomes a place where fear grows because it is always scanning for danger, always comparing, always searching for something to be anxious about. But when you practice gratitude consistently, you shift the direction of your attention. You stop chasing what is missing and start recognizing what is already here. You begin to feel the weight lift from your chest, because gratitude pulls you out of mental poverty and places you into mental abundance. Gratitude doesn't mean your life is perfect. It doesn't mean everything is easy. It doesn't mean you ignore your challenges. What gratitude does is simple but powerful. It brings balance back into your mind. It reminds you that even though you have problems, you also have blessings. Even though you have fears, you also have strength. Even though you have uncertainties, you also have opportunities. Gratitude helps you see the full picture, not just the dark parts. And when your mind sees the full picture, it becomes harder for fear to dominate your emotions. Buddhism teaches that the mind becomes whatever it repeats. If you repeat fear, you become anxious. If you repeat anger, you become bitter. If you repeat doubt, you become insecure. But if you repeat gratitude, you become grounded, balanced, calm, and emotionally strong. Gratitude is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. At first, it feels unfamiliar. You may sit down and try to think of something to appreciate, and your mind, conditioned to focus on problems, might resist. But with practice, gratitude slowly begins to reshape your inner landscape. What once felt forced becomes natural. What once felt difficult becomes easy. And what once felt small and insignificant becomes a powerful antidote to worry. When you begin practicing gratitude, even in the smallest ways, you start to notice an immediate shift inside you. The things you used to overlook, the breath in your body, the roof over your head, the food you eat, the people who care for you, the lessons that helped you grow, the opportunities you often take for granted, begin to feel meaningful. You begin to understand that you were never lacking as much as you thought. You were simply not paying attention to your blessings. Gratitude does not change your life from the outside. It changes the way you experience life from the inside. And when your inner world changes, your outer world becomes easier to navigate. Worry loses its power when you start appreciating what you have instead of fearing what you might lose. Gratitude shifts your focus from scarcity to abundance. Scarcity says, there isn't enough, something bad will happen, I'm not safe. Abundance says, I have enough, I am supported, I am growing, I can handle what comes. This shift in perspective changes every part of your emotional life. Your nervous system calms down, your thoughts become gentler, your reactions become softer, your decisions become clearer. Gratitude reduces fear at the biological level because it turns off the mind's survival alarm and activates the part of the brain responsible for calmness, stability, and emotional clarity. When you make gratitude a daily practice, you begin to feel more centered. Instead of waking up with thoughts of stress, you start the day by acknowledging something meaningful. Even if it is simple, your breath, the morning light, the chance to live another day. Throughout the day, you begin noticing moments of beauty that you previously ignored. A kind gesture, a peaceful moment, a small success, a lesson learned. Gratitude shifts your awareness toward the good, which makes your emotional world lighter and your mind more peaceful. And at night, gratitude helps you release the weight of the day. Instead of going to bed with fear racing through your mind, you end the day by recognizing what went well, what you learned, and what you can appreciate. This brings your heart into a state of rest rather than tension. Over time, gratitude reshapes the very way you think. It becomes harder for your mind to jump into fear, because gratitude has created new pathways of positivity and calmness. You begin responding differently to life because your emotional foundation is no longer built on fear, but on appreciation. You stop catastrophizing. You stop imagining worst-case scenarios. You stop letting small problems ruin your peace. You become someone who sees opportunities instead of obstacles, growth instead of pain, and lessons instead of losses. Gratitude is not a spiritual luxury. It is emotional medicine. It is one of the most powerful tools for healing worry, because it shifts the vibration of your mind from fear into peace, from scarcity into abundance, from anxiety into clarity. It doesn't remove all your problems, but it gives you the strength and emotional stability to handle them without drowning in worry. Gratitude brings your mind back to the present moment, back to what is real, back to what matters. And when you live with gratitude, the noise of fear becomes quieter, the weight of worry becomes lighter, and the experience of life becomes much more peaceful. This is the secret hidden in Buddhist wisdom. Happy people are not those who have perfect lives. They are those who train their minds to notice the good. And the more you practice gratitude, the more you become one of those people. Your mind becomes a place where peace feels natural, joy feels possible, and worry feels unnecessary. Gratitude does not only change your thoughts, it changes your energy, your attitude, your decisions, your relationships, and ultimately, the entire direction of your life. When gratitude becomes your daily practice, happiness becomes your daily experience. 8. Reprogram your mind with calm awareness instead of automatic reaction. One of the reasons worry takes over your life so easily is because most people live on autopilot. Thoughts appear, and you automatically believe them. Emotions rise, and you automatically react to them. The situation changes, and you automatically assume something bad. This habit of immediately reacting to everything creates a mind that feels unstable, tense, and constantly overwhelmed. Buddhism teaches that suffering grows in the space between stimulus and reaction, the space where your mind usually jumps to conclusions, repeats old patterns, and creates fear out of situations that don't deserve fear. But when you learn to introduce awareness into this space, everything changes. Awareness gives you the power to respond instead of react, observe instead of panic, and choose peace instead of worry. Most people have never trained their minds to pause. They hear a negative thought and immediately assume it's true. They feel a wave of anxiety and immediately believe something is wrong. They face a challenge and instantly imagine the worst-case scenario. This automatic reaction is not your nature. It is simply a conditioning you learned throughout your life. Every stressful moment, every fearful experience, every painful memory has trained your mind to react quickly and protectively. But this protection often becomes self-destruction because the mind begins to create danger even when there is none. Buddhism teaches that the mind becomes calm, not when life becomes easier, but when awareness replaces automatic reactions. Awareness is the ability to recognize what is happening inside you before your mind rushes to interpret it. It gives you a moment to breathe, to observe, to notice your thoughts without letting them drag you into panic. This moment of awareness acts like a bridge. It separates you from your old patterns and gives you the power to choose a new response. Without awareness, you are simply a passenger in your mind. With awareness, you become the driver. To reprogram your mind, you must first understand how deeply your thoughts can influence your emotions. A single negative thought can create a wave of worry if you accept it without question. But if you observe that thought with awareness, noticing it like a cloud passing through the sky, it loses its weight. You begin to see that it is just a thought, not a fact, not a prophecy, not a command you must obey. This is where true freedom begins. When you stop letting thoughts dictate how you feel and start choosing how you want to respond. Awareness teaches you to look at your thoughts with curiosity instead of fear. Instead of panicking when worry arises, You say to yourself, "This is just my mind trying to protect me. Let me watch it without getting pulled in." This gentle observation creates emotional distance. It breaks the cycle of thought, worry, reaction, more worry, and replaces it with a calmer pattern. Thought, awareness, understanding, peace. The more often you practice this, the more your mind begins to shift. Worry stops feeling like a wave that knocks you over, and instead becomes like a small ripple you can easily step over. Reprogramming your mind with awareness also means learning to stay grounded in your body. Most worry happens because your mind is stuck in stories about the future or memories of the past. But when you bring your attention back to your breath, your senses, or the feeling of your feet touching the ground, your awareness returns to the present moment. And the present moment is always safer than the stories your mind creates. When your awareness is rooted in the body, your thoughts lose their ability to pull you into fear, because you are anchored in reality. This practice doesn't eliminate worry overnight. It reshapes your mental patterns slowly, gently, consistently. At first, awareness feels like a small light in a dark room, but with repetition, the light grows. You start recognizing your triggers, moments when your mind tends to jump into fear. You begin noticing your patterns, the thoughts that appear repeatedly. You see your emotional habits, how you react when things don't go your way. And once you become aware of these patterns, you finally have the power to change them. Awareness also helps you see that many of your worries are not based on the present moment, but on old emotional memories. Perhaps someone once hurt you, and now your mind assumes everyone will. Perhaps you once failed at something, and now your mind fears trying again. Perhaps you grew up in an environment where worry was normal, and now your mind repeats that pattern automatically. Awareness reveals the truth behind these patterns, allowing you to break cycles that may have controlled you for years. When awareness becomes your daily practice, your emotional world transforms. You begin responding to life with clarity rather than panic. You no longer get pulled into mental storms as easily. You feel lighter because you are not carrying unnecessary thoughts. You feel calmer because your reactions become slow, thoughtful, and intentional. You begin choosing peace even when your mind tries to create fear. And this is one of the deepest forms of mental reprogramming, when you are no longer ruled by your thoughts, but guided by your awareness. Awareness creates emotional spaciousness. It gives you room to breathe between the thought and your response. This space is where your peace lives. This space is where your healing begins. This space is where worry dissolves. Reprogramming your mind doesn't require force, it requires presence. The more present you are with your thoughts, the less power they have over you. The more aware you become, the more grounded you feel. And slowly, you begin to trust your inner calm more than your inner fear. This is the essence of Buddhist practice. You don't conquer the mind by fighting it, you calm the mind by observing it. You don't silence fear by resisting it, you soften fear by shining awareness on it. Every moment of awareness becomes a moment of freedom, and with time, these moments stack up until worry no longer dominates your life. Awareness becomes your new operating system, calmness becomes your default, peace becomes your natural state, and your mind becomes a place where worry cannot thrive, because awareness is always stronger than fear. 9. Unplug from mental noise and create space for inner peace. In today's world, one of the biggest hidden sources of worry is the constant mental noise surrounding you. Everywhere you go, something is grabbing your attention. Notifications popping up, people messaging you, endless scrolling, constant comparisons, voices of judgment, opinions, expectations, pressure, and unnecessary information entering your mind every hour. Without realizing it, your mind becomes crowded, overstimulated, and overwhelmed. When the mind is overloaded, worry becomes automatic, because there is no space left for clarity, silence, or inner calm. Buddhism teaches that the mind needs empty space the way lungs need air. Without space, you cannot breathe emotionally. Without silence, you cannot hear your own wisdom. Without peace, you cannot calm your fears. And without disconnection from noise, you cannot reconnect with yourself. Mental noise doesn't only come from outside sources, it also comes from within. Overthinking, self-criticism, perfectionism, replayed arguments, imagined disasters, and emotional clutter all create inner noise. Every time you jump from one thought to another, without rest, you weaken your ability to stay grounded. Your mind becomes like a spinning wheel, constantly turning without direction, speed, or purpose. And when a mind spins too fast, worry slips in easily because the emotional system is already overloaded. Buddhist wisdom teaches that a noisy mind is a worried mind, and a worried mind is a tired mind. When your mind is full, fear has more places to hide. Most people think worry comes from difficult situations, but often it comes from never giving the mind a break. If you never rest, you never reset. If you never pause, you never heal. Silence is not something people naturally get today. It is something you must create intentionally. The modern world is designed to keep you distracted, anxious, and mentally stimulated. It trains your mind to stay uncomfortable in quiet moments, because silence feels strange when you are used to noise. But silence is where your healing begins. Silence is where your clarity returns. Silence is where your mind remembers how to slow down. Unplugging from mental noise does not only mean turning off your phone or stepping away from social media, though these are important. It also means stepping away from the emotional patterns that feed your worry, stepping away from constant comparison, stepping away from trying to please everyone, stepping away from chasing perfection, stepping away from thinking about every possible outcome, stepping away from the unnecessary habit of checking your problems again and again in your mind. When you disconnect from these patterns, you reclaim a huge amount of mental energy. You begin to feel lighter, not because your life changed, but because your mind finally has room to breathe. Buddhism teaches that the mind becomes calm when you give it space. Imagine pouring water into a glass filled with dirt. The water becomes cloudy instantly. But if you stop pouring and let the glass sit still, the dirt slowly sinks to the bottom and the water becomes clear. Your mind works the same way. When your mind is constantly stirred by noise, information, and thoughts, everything becomes cloudy. But if you stop stirring and allow your mind to be still, clarity naturally arises. You don't need to force peace, you just need to stop disturbing it. Creating mental space can be done in simple, gentle ways. Sitting quietly for a few minutes, closing your eyes and taking a few slow breaths, going for a walk without your phone, spending time in nature, listening to calming sounds instead of chaotic ones, allowing yourself to do nothing without feeling guilty. Each of these small practices creates room inside your mind. This room becomes the birthplace of peace. You begin to understand your emotions better. You begin to see which thoughts are helpful and which ones drain your energy. You begin to separate your true concerns from the unnecessary ones, and you begin to feel the heaviness of worry slowly fade. When you unplug from noise, even for a few moments each day, you reconnect with your inner self, the part of you that is naturally calm, wise, and grounded. Everyone has a peaceful core within them, but most people never reach it because they are too distracted by noise. When you create silence, you allow this deeper part of yourself to emerge. You start to hear your intuition more clearly. You start to understand what you truly need. You start to feel more centered and stable, and you begin to trust yourself in a way you never have before. This trust is important because worry often comes from lack of inner security. When you don't trust yourself, you fear the future. When you don't trust your decisions, you fear failure. When you don't trust your strength, you fear challenges. But when you reconnect with your inner self through silence and mental space, you develop a quiet confidence. You stop doubting your ability to handle life. You stop depending on others' opinions for direction. You stop needing constant reassurance. Your inner calm becomes your foundation, and worry loses its power because you no longer feel fragile inside. Unplugging also teaches you to differentiate between real problems and mental noise. Many of the things you worry about are not real threats. They are exaggerated by your tired, overloaded mind. When your mind becomes still, you begin to see what truly deserves your attention and what doesn't. You stop wasting energy on small things. You stop letting minor situations ruin your peace. You stop creating stories about fear that don't reflect reality. Worry shrinks when the mind has enough silence to see clearly. With time, as silence becomes a regular part of your life, something surprising happens. You begin to enjoy it. What once felt strange now feels peaceful. What once felt uncomfortable now feels natural. What once felt empty now feels full of meaning. You no longer crave noise, because silence begins to nourish you in a way distraction never could. You begin to experience moments of pure presence, moments where your mind is not in the past or the future, but fully here, fully alive, fully aware. These moments are deeply healing because they remind you that peace is not far away, it is always waiting beneath the noise. This is the heart of Buddhist teaching. Peace is your original state. Worry is the disturbance. Silence is the medicine. When you unplug from noise and reconnect with yourself, you don't escape life. You return to it with a clearer mind, a calmer heart, and a stronger sense of inner stability. You become less reactive, less fearful, less overwhelmed. You become more mindful, more patient, more grounded. You begin to live instead of survive, and you begin to feel happiness that doesn't depend on circumstances but grows from within. Unplugging from mental noise is not about avoiding life. It is about finally hearing yourself. It is about creating the emotional space necessary for peace to enter. And once peace enters your life, worry can no longer dominate your mind the way it used to. Silence becomes your sanctuary, awareness becomes your strength, and calmness becomes your natural way of moving through the world. 10. Master the art of letting life flow instead of forcing outcomes. Worry grows strongest when you try to force life to follow your script. You want things to happen at a certain time, in a certain way, with a certain result. You want people to behave the way you expect. You want situations to unfold according to your plan. You want guarantees, certainty, and emotional safety before you take a single step. This constant attempt to control the flow of life creates tension inside your mind, because reality rarely follows human expectation. Buddhism teaches that one of the deepest sources of worry is the illusion that you can force life to move according to your personal timeline. The more you resist the natural flow, the heavier your mind becomes. The more you demand outcomes, the more you suffer when life doesn't deliver them exactly as you imagined. Peace begins the moment you stop forcing and start flowing. Life is like a river. It has curves, rapids, calm waters, storms, and unexpected bends. If you stand in the river trying to push the water backward, you exhaust yourself. But if you float with the current, you move forward effortlessly. Worry comes from trying to swim against life's natural movement. You think that if you stop trying to control everything, things will fall apart. But the truth is, many things in life work better when you stop interfering and allow them to unfold. Worry gives you the illusion of doing something useful, but in reality, it drains your energy and blinds you from seeing solutions. Letting life flow is not passivity. It is wisdom. It is understanding that some answers come with time, some situations resolve themselves, and some paths become clear only after you walk a little further. Forcing outcomes often comes from fear. Fear of losing control, fear of making mistakes, fear of the unknown, fear of being left behind. You cling tightly because you believe letting go will make you vulnerable. But Buddhism teaches that clinging is actually what creates suffering. When you cling to expectations, you create mental pressure. When you cling to specific results, you create anxiety. When you cling to people, you create fear of abandonment. When you cling to your past, you block your future. And when you cling to certainty, you destroy your peace. Letting life flow means loosening the grip around your fears and learning to trust the process, even when you cannot see the full path ahead. Letting life flow also means accepting that some things cannot be rushed. You cannot rush healing. You cannot rush clarity. You cannot rush timing. You cannot rush outcomes that require maturity, experience, or growth. Many people worry because they want everything now, but life does not operate on impatience. Life gives you seasons. Seasons of growth, seasons of waiting, seasons of pruning, and seasons of blooming. When you resist these seasons, you suffer. But when you embrace them, you begin to understand that timing is part of your spiritual journey. What is meant for you will come when you are prepared for it, not when you are anxious for it. When you stop forcing outcomes, you free your mind from the burden of trying to manage everything. You begin to see opportunities you overlooked before. You start noticing paths you didn't consider because worry blinded you. Forcing life keeps your vision narrow and tight. Letting life flow opens your vision wide and soft. Instead of obsessing over one specific future, you start seeing multiple possibilities. Instead of fearing the unknown, you become curious about how things will unfold. Instead of panicking when something goes wrong, you look for the lesson or the hidden blessing. This shift transforms your emotional experience because you stop fighting reality and begin cooperating with it. Learning to flow means trusting yourself as well. It means believing you will handle things if they happen. It means knowing you can adapt, grow, and pivot. Many people worry because they do not trust their own strength. They believe things must go perfectly or they won't be able to survive. But the truth is, you have survived everything life has thrown at you so far. You have overcome challenges you once feared. You have learned lessons you once resisted. You have grown through experiences you thought would break you. Your resilience is proof that you can trust yourself more than your worries allow. When you trust yourself, you stop forcing life, because you no longer fear that you will collapse if things don't go according to plan. Letting life flow also means letting go of stories in your mind. Stories that say you must achieve certain things by a certain age. Stories that say your life must look like other people's lives. Stories that say you are behind or not good enough. These stories create unnecessary pressure and push you into worry. But when you drop these stories, you begin living your own timeline instead of comparing it to others. You stop worrying about where you should be and start appreciating where you are. This is the essence of inner freedom, living without the weight of imagined expectation. When you allow life to flow, you also make space for surprises. Good surprises, beautiful surprises, unexpected blessings that worry would never let you see. Forcing outcomes creates a narrow path with only one possible direction. Flowing with life opens countless paths, each with its own lessons and opportunities. Some of the best things in your life will come from moments you didn't plan. Some of the most important people you will meet will enter your life by accident. Some of your biggest breakthroughs will happen when you least expect them. Worry closes the door to these possibilities. Flowing keeps you open. As you practice flowing with life, You begin noticing a deep, gentle confidence arising within you. You stop panicking when the unexpected happens because you trust the larger picture. You stop stressing when timing feels slow because you understand that delay is not denial, it is preparation. You stop resisting change because you recognize that the river of life is always moving, and holding on to the shore only increases your suffering. Flow teaches you to move with life instead of against it. And when you move with life, you discover peace that cannot be shaken by external events. Letting life flow is not a one-time decision. It is a daily practice. It is choosing to breathe instead of tighten, choosing to trust instead of fear, choosing to adapt instead of resist, choosing to stay open instead of forcing your way through. Every time you choose flow over force, your mind becomes softer, your heart becomes lighter, and your life becomes more aligned with its natural rhythm. You stop draining your energy on battles you were never meant to fight. You stop worrying about outcomes that will resolve themselves with time. You stop overthinking moments that don't need analysis. You start living with a peaceful awareness that everything unfolds exactly as it should. This is the deep wisdom of Buddhism. Life is not something to control, it is something to cooperate with. When you stop forcing and start flowing, worry loses its foundation. Your mind becomes calm because it is no longer fighting against the universe. Your heart becomes peaceful because it is no longer holding unrealistic expectations. And your entire being becomes aligned with the truth that life, when allowed to flow naturally, will bring everything you need at the right moment. Flow is peace. Force is suffering. The moment you choose flow, you choose freedom. When you look back at your life, you will notice something important. Most of the things you spent months worrying about never actually happened. Most of the imagined disasters never came true. Most of the fears that kept you awake at night were only illusions created by a tired, overwhelmed mind trying to protect you. Worry is not a reflection of reality. It is a reflection of your relationship with reality. And Buddhism teaches that the real transformation begins not by changing the world outside you, but by changing the way you respond to the world inside you. The lessons you just learned are not temporary tips. They are practices that slowly reshape your entire mental and emotional world. The mind creates much of your suffering because it constantly jumps into the past or the future, dragging you into timelines filled with regret or fear. But the more you learn to return to the present, to the breath, to your senses, to this moment, the more you realize that peace has always been available, quietly waiting beneath the noise of your thoughts. You begin to understand that the present moment is the only place where life happens, the only place where peace is possible, and the only place where worry cannot reach you. When you live fully in the now, you stop fighting battles that don't exist, and stop suffering over situations that your mind only imagines. As you move through these teachings, you learn to let go of the illusion of total control. You stop trying to manipulate every outcome, predict every event, and solve every possible future problem. Instead, you start focusing only on what is within your power, your choices, your effort, your attitude, your presence. This brings you a sense of clarity that reduces half your worry instantly. Life feels less heavy when you stop carrying burdens that were never yours. The moment you set down what you cannot control is the moment your inner freedom begins. You also start seeing worry for what it truly is, a mental habit strengthened by repetition. But like any habit, it can be unlearned. When you stop feeding your mind fearful thoughts, fear slowly loses its grip on you. You understand that not every thought deserves your attention, and not every emotion deserves your reaction. Awareness becomes your shield. It gives you the space to witness your thoughts without becoming trapped inside them. Through awareness, you learn to observe fear instead of obeying it, to recognize worry instead of drowning in it, and to choose peace even when your mind tries to pull you into chaos. And then something even deeper begins to happen. You learn the art of acceptance, not as a form of surrendering to weakness, but as an act of strength. Acceptance frees you from resisting the present moment. It frees you from fighting reality. It frees you from expecting life to be perfect before you allow yourself to be calm. Acceptance teaches you that inner peace does not come from controlling circumstances. It comes from no longer letting circumstances control your emotional state. The more you accept what is, the more space you create within yourself for what can be. Through gratitude, your entire mental vibration begins to shift. You stop focusing on what is missing and start appreciating what is already here. Gratitude opens your eyes to blessings you once overlooked. Your breath, your body, your learning, your relationships, your opportunities. The more you practice gratitude, the more your mind moves away from fear and toward abundance. Fear cannot survive inside a grateful mind. Gratitude becomes your emotional anchor, giving you stability in moments when life feels uncertain. As you unplug from mental noise, you start discovering your true self, the one beneath all the stress, distractions, and expectations. Silence becomes a mirror that reflects your inner wisdom. You start hearing your intuition again, feeling your emotions clearly, and understanding your needs without confusion. Silence clears your inner world, just the way still water clears naturally. And in that clarity, worry loses the confusing grip it once had over you. You begin to feel mentally lighter, emotionally stronger, and spiritually more grounded than ever before. Eventually, you learn the deepest lesson of all. Life flows with or without your worry. Life moves with or without your fear. Life unfolds with or without your attempts to control it. When you stop forcing and start flowing, you align yourself with the natural rhythm of existence. You start trusting that not everything needs your interference. You start believing that the right things will arrive at the right time, and the wrong things will fall away when they are no longer meant for you. Flowing with life creates a kind of peace that control can never offer. You no longer live in fear of the unknown because you understand that the unknown is where new possibilities are born. These 10 teachings are more than just ideas. They are practices that slowly reshape the way your mind thinks, the way your heart feels, and the way your spirit moves through the world. Over time, you begin to notice that you worry less. Not because life became easier, but because you became stronger, more grounded, and more connected to your inner truth. You begin waking up with a calmer soul. You begin going to sleep with a lighter heart. You begin handling challenges with more wisdom and less panic. You begin trusting yourself in a way you never did before. And slowly, something beautiful happens. Worry no longer feels like your default state. Peace does. Calm does. Presence does. Awareness does. You realize that happiness is not something you chase through the future. It is something you create in every moment by choosing peace over fear, acceptance over resistance, awareness over reaction, gratitude over scarcity, and flow over force. Happiness does not depend on a perfect life. It depends on a peaceful mind. And a peaceful mind is something you can build gently, daily, intentionally, with the teachings you've learned today. So as you leave this video, remember this truth. Your mind is powerful, but you are more powerful than your mind. Your thoughts are loud, but your awareness is louder. Your fear is strong, but your wisdom is stronger. You do not have to let worry shape your life. You have the ability to shape your mind, shape your emotions, shape your inner world, and create a life where peace is not rare. It is your daily companion. Every moment is an opportunity to choose calmness, to choose presence, to choose gratitude, to choose acceptance, to choose flow, and to choose a happier, lighter, more peaceful life. The journey begins not someday, it begins right now, with this breath, this awareness, this moment of clarity. And the more you practice these teachings, the more you will discover that peace was never somewhere outside, it was always inside you, waiting for you to return home.